choose not to decide, you still have made a choice.
Hello, Facebook and internet and YouTube worlds. We're back.
Yay.
The Living NLP Podcast has returned. In the last, I don't know, how long has it been, man? Like a year or more?
I don't remember
when the last one that we did is.
But
I have been getting semi-regular messages from YouTube from people saying, hey, when are you guys going to come back and do more of this podcast? So my word that I chose for the year 2020 is prolific. So I decided, what better time to brush off this old beast and start making some content again.
Yeah. And I just, usually when we talk shop, we get together and we're like, hey, what's going on with you? What's going on with me? Two peers sort of going, oh, this and that. And we know, oh, this is what I've been into lately. This is what I've been working on with myself. This is what I've been working on with my clients. Oh, cool. This and that. Ways that we can sort of discuss what's important to us. And we enjoy those conversations. And we thought you might enjoy those conversations. And so now we're recording it and streaming it live on Facebook.
I think one of our goals is to make this a lot more low maintenance than the last podcast that we did in person with lighting and cameras and all that stuff.
Yeah, we're just going to shoot the shit.
Yeah.
Talk shop.
So I think you said it really well when you said like talking shop. So for those of you who are tuning in, if you're tuning in to listen to this podcast, this is the Living NLP Podcast. And we thought a lot about what that name means, Living NLP. And the idea being that we just kind of want to give a window into two NLP coaches, trainers. You went through trainers training, right?
I did.
Yeah. We're both NLP trainers. We're both in the trenches on a weekly basis, working with clients, using NLP hypnosis and all of the skills and resources we have at our fingertips. And we thought it would be fun to just do a much more casual, much simpler podcast where we get together every week and just say, what have you been working on? What cool stuff have you done this week with your clients?
Yeah.
And we have kind of a rough outline for it. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, sure. Just also, in my work with people who aren't necessarily coaches, they end up wanting to coach. And there's not a lot of coaching that I had come across that I found terribly useful or there to be had that was really interesting and spoke to me. And in doing this, and like two coaches talking about coaching and answering questions about coaching and NLP coaching, using NLP and hypnosis to coach, I thought this would be a great place for people who just wanted to learn more about our processes.
Sure.
That can then also learn that. And then other coaches who want to learn our processes as well. Like for current coaches, people who might want to coach, just sort of pulling the screen back and going, this is how we do it. This is the way we look at it.
And this is not beginner shit though. Like we're not going to be teaching NLP. No. Like this is inside what is it? Inside baseball? What's the expression?
I don't know. But yeah, this is, you got to know a little bit about some stuff for what we're talking about.
Yeah. I think this is for people who have already studied some, and maybe even ideally for people who are also working with clients or at least people who are like, I got certified as a coach and I'm thinking about getting clients, but I want to know like, what is it really like to do this for a living? Yeah.
We're not going to tell you how to do a parts integration. We're going to talk about parts integrations.
Correct.
That kind of stuff. And the way we've sort of loosely put this together is that we're going to have, hey, this is us. This is a quote from a book that we like. We'll either talk about the quote or we'll talk about the book. This is an anecdote from either the work that we've done this week on ourselves or with others, and then maybe answer a question or two from the audience.
Yeah. For this first one, I went and collected some questions from like Facebook groups.
Right.
I have a long list. We probably won't get through all the questions, but eventually the goal is to get to the point where you, the listener, viewer, submit your questions. Like we want to be in dialogue and conversation. If that's what this podcast turns into, where literally the whole time, every time we're just answering questions, that would be freaking awesome.
And one last thing before we start, modeling imperfect action I'm all about it. Because again, another problem I see either in coaches or people in coaching is, yeah, we're doing it right, and all that stuff. It's not going to be perfect. This is not going to be perfect. I assure you of that. It's already not perfect, and I'm okay with that. So
before we got started, we were sitting around waiting for freaking Zoom to figure out if it was going to convert the file. So we're hoping that you're actually seeing this, but we don't even know for sure if the recording is going to work. So that's imperfect action, right?
That's what we're doing. So how do you want to do?
I love it. You want me to start?
Yeah.
You want to go with quotes or anecdotes first? Let's do the anecdotes first.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So I'll start with this one. I had a few that I was kind of tossing around, but I settled on this one because I felt like there was a lot of branches that we could go off in different directions on this. So I had a client who was telling me that so most of my clients are coaches. So this client has a client who confessed to them that they thought of themselves as abusive, and they were giving an example in their relationship of how they were abusive. And my client asked me, like, what do I do in this kind of situation? And she was saying like I'm nervous. Like I kind of feel this urge to almost threaten the client and be like, if you're going to act that way, I'm not going to work with you. So I thought about this, and there was a few directions that I took it. So I started with, first of all, there's a frame from, I think, Milton Erickson, that if you think your client has a really big problem, like if your client comes to you and they say, here's my problem, and you are like, oh my gosh, that's a really big problem, you should probably refer them to someone else.
Yeah.
Because you're already buying into their bullshit. Yeah. Which ended up being kind of the main point that I emphasized with her, is that I was saying, okay, your client who approached you and is like, I'm so abusive, listen to these horrible stories about how I've treated my partner. She's expecting you to scold her. That's what she wants. She wants you to come in and threaten her and be like, and validate her view that she's a piece of shit, right? So I had a couple of quick reframes about, first of all, if you throw her out, if you fire the client or you give them an ultimatum, do you think she's going to stop being abusive? Is it a better chance she's going to stop being abusive with your help or without it? Right. And then I said, also, her partner is the one who needs to get out of this situation. If her partner's sticking around, this client's coming to you saying, I'm abusive, this is a problem, fucking fix me, help me. That's a good sign. That means they want to change, or most likely. So the last point that I said was, don't give in to her magnetic pull to scold her and threaten. But also, don't ignore that either, because this is something I've learned through studying radical honesty, and actually this is going to be relevant to the book that I'm going to mention later, is that a lot of times when you have those intuitions and impulses, you should turn that stone over and look under it. Yeah. So what I was telling her was, tell her that you feel this way, that you're like, wow, it's really interesting. When you say that about yourself being abusive, I feel the urge to like, I feel like this magnetic pull to tell you that you're a piece of shit.
Right, I just want to beat your ass.
Yeah, I'm like, I want to threaten you and be like,
something about your face, I just want to punch it.
Yes. So she did it. And she was like, it completely shifted the energy. And and she talked about like, there's something, it's like simultaneously getting into rapport with them, because you're telling them, you're validating that I feel it. I feel what you're trying to get me to do. And it's also letting them know that you are not going to get sucked into the same patterns that everyone else in their life has been running.
Right. You're not afraid to go, no, hang on, let's look at this.
Yeah.
I mean, that technique, that action that they took, or that you suggested they took, that works in everything. Like, again, whether you are on a date with the first person, I'm really nervous. Oh, you know what? I'm actually pretty nervous. Or when you're standing on stage about to talk to people, hey, everybody, I'm kind of nervous.
Yes.
Now I'm excited.
Call it out.
And the same thing. And I'm going to talk about my passions of psychedelia. Anyone who is ever having a bad trip, if you're ever thinking you're having a bad trip, talk about it. Externalize it. Go, hey, I'm having a real hard time here, man. And then next thing you know, it's out. And you're dealing with it instead of, whoop, it turns into this like...
It's almost like spiral. Pushing it down.
Yeah, and it takes the energy to push it down.
You're putting it under pressure, and then it starts going, pew, like, pew,
exactly.
like, yeah.
So in any situation, I think that's a fantastic method of dealing with the awkwardness or the,
Cool. That was my anecdote. Your
nice.
turn.
It's a good one. So mine's kind of along the same levels. If you said someone was like abusive but wanted abuse, and two people lately, and I'm going to do my best to speak about this as generally as possible. Two of my clients in the very recent past have come to me with similar problems where they're afraid of sales. They're not feeling, they feel they're not themselves when it comes to sales, but they're super successful in other areas of their life. They're like really good at what they do. They're known as being what they are, but in this sort of sales thing, they're lacking, even though they have these resources in other areas, even though they're super badass, but they just have these very common limiting beliefs that many people have around sales. And this anecdote is, again, sort of not meant to tell you what to do about it, but more to shine a light on how to solve these kinds of problems, chunk up, like
sure.
So in their regular life, both of these people who were having trouble selling were DOMs. In the BDSM world,
like in a BDSM sexual context,
like sub and dom,
both of them.
Each of them separately were both.
I wonder if this says something about the kind of clients you're attracting.
Well, I'll take it because they're wonderful people and they do good work. So they're both DOMs, right? And in this world, the BDSM world is built around, the sub-dom world is built around clearly defined boundaries and the exchange of power in those places. And these people are big in that community. They're knowledgeable and they're successful and they're confident and they're strong in that world.
Yeah.
Those are resources. They're immense and they're intense resources that are at the core of their very being. And yet sales was something that they're really scared of. And our job, my job, our job, coaches' jobs, especially NLP coaches' jobs, is to help someone take the resources that they have and use them where they need them, like problem, resource.
Yes.
There's a parts integration. I just explained parts integration for you, right? So I started to just talk to them about sales in terms of being a Dom. And I said things like, your sales funnel can just, it doesn't have to be bend over and I'm going to fuck you right now. That's not BDSM. That's not sexy, right? That's not, no one wants to buy that. There has to be some kind of courtship. There has to be a clear delineation of boundaries and respect for honest communication, right? And so at first you titillate, you just kind of let them know what you do. Maybe you give them some ideas and some metaphors and some examples of what you've done, and you spark their imagination, you innervate them, right?
You ask them what they want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you get them all tingly, right? And wait a minute. And you show them what you've got going on. You give them a little taste, but it's not time for the sale yet. No. You gotta make them want it. You gotta make them want to buy from you. You build that desire until they can't stand it anymore. You say, oh, no, not what? No, don't buy it from me yet. Don't buy it from me yet. Now buy it from me. Buy it from me harder. Buy it from me harder. And they both just went, oh my God, I get it. And on whatever level it was, resource, problem.
Yes.
Ugh. And then they totally got it. And now they're able to go, oh, I get it. Right. It's just one of those beautiful aha moments where you can.
Well, the chunk up on your technique there is when somebody has a problem in one context, look for another context where they're doing awesome, and then take the lessons and the strategies and resources from one and apply them to the other.
Yeah, totally. And then that's how you sell anything, right?
Yeah.
Is to know your work and to be congruent in yourself and use your resources to connect.
I think it is fascinating that somebody, like, if you're dumb, like, you would think that that person has like tons of confidence and charisma and like dominant energy, and they do. But it's just fascinating how you can have that in one area, but you can have another context in your life where you're like totally like weak and blocked. And like, I could imagine those things being flipped. Like, imagine somebody who's really great at sales, but the thought of being dominant in a sexual context freaks them out completely. And like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Somebody else over here, yeah.
And it's all those blind spots and sort of those things that coaching helps with. Go, you mean I have that? That's back there? Oh, I didn't even know. It's just to take like someone's Clark Kent and someone's Superman and introduce them to each other.
Oh, fuck you, dude. That was great. That was great. Yes. I love that. Okay.
Cool. So that was my anecdote for the week. It was pretty cool that I had two of them, the similar things, and I'm not telling either of them too much about each other. I was like, in artfully vague ways, I was able to speak about them to each other and inspire them each other. It was great. And that
makes me think about, do you ever notice like a theme for the week? Like with your clients, like if you've got a lot of clients in a week, I will often find that in the beginning of the week, I'll run into like 2 or 3 people that are asking similar questions. And then I will often, from a like Jungian perceptions projection perspective, I will often notice the same thing in my own life. Like I'll be noticing like, oh, here's a place for me to learn that. Or my kid will be running some pattern like that.
And I don't necessarily notice the weekly themes. I mean, other than this one, I'm sure it's happened before, but there are common themes, obviously, through working with similar types of people. But I definitely, even whether or not I've already gone through it myself, with every client when I'm helping them go through it, I go through it again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For me. I go, that's still good. All right, that was an interesting little insight. Maybe,
or new layer on the same thing.
Exactly.
Like,
So it still helps me to re-go and regrow through things.
Okay. All right. So you want to switch on to quotes?
Let's switch on to quotes, bro.
Okay. So I have been reading a book lately, and I've been going kind of slowly through this. I only have a digital copy of the book, so I can't hold it up. I would normally be like, look at my book. I like physical books more. There's something kinesthetic about that. But the book I've been reading lately is called Provocative Therapy. It was inspired. This one I can show you. It was inspired because I read a book, which I introduced you to, called Provocative Hypnosis. I will shout out to Jorgen Rasmussen. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Fucking amazing. I love this book. It's one of the best books on NLP and hypnosis written in a long time that I've read. This is fairly current.
And it's fun. Because he comes from a sort of Bandlerian place.
Yes, yeah, and it's very behaviorally flexible, and it's really it's challenging in ways.
And he's fucking with people in a good way.
Yeah. And he'll show you how to do it productively.
Right. Igor Lechovsky, who's awesome. I heard him talking about provocative therapy today on something, and he said that book is basically like a distractor. The satyr archetype. Very, very distractor, but the light side of distractor is very.
I totally get that. Pattern interrupt.
Right, but I just heard all of that, and I was like, oh, cool.
So in the beginning of this book, Provocative Hypnosis, he references that the inspiration for this book was another older book called Provocative Therapy, and I was like, I should check that out. And years later now, I finally got a copy of it, and oh my God, I love it. It's like a great merging of NLP and radical honesty, which is another hugely influential book and philosophy for my life. So the section that I found, he was talking about the development of his theory and the techniques and processes that came out of that theory in provocative therapy. And he had this quote. It's a little long. It's a convention in the scientific world to report the emergence of a new theory as though it emerged slowly and inevitably from the analytical, it says throttling, but I don't think that's the word, from the analytical analysis of data. The scientist is pictured as plodding through his method, discovering some discrepancy in experimental results, and myopically tracking this discrepancy until he stumbles over the doorstep of theory. Actually, far more often than not, the theory springs into the scientist's vision as a wild surmise, and he spends most of his time searching for facts to fit it.
Wild surmise.
Yeah, I know. I like the quote. I like the prose.
That's great. I just like surmise. Haven't heard that one in a while. I love it. Yeah.
So the thing that I took from this is maybe this is my own like extrapolation on it, but at some level, I think as a coach, you have to begin to develop your own style. You have to find that, like, this is not the way things are done. This is the way I do things.
It's so funny. I'm going to talk about the same thing. we haven't gone over this. If you couldn't
no.
Go ahead.
No. So the point that I was making is that through experience, like, a lot of people have this idea that there's the right way to freaking do things. And NLP, as much as it emphasizes think freely and like apply, like empirical, like focus on the situation, treat every person as an individual, there are a lot of traps to fall into of this is the way that it is done. And I think there's something so valuable about this where at some point you will come up against thresholds where you will have an idea about something, and everything that you've learned up to that point will serve as the foundation for something new, and you will need to leave a lot of what you clung to before behind, and then emerge into a new place where you're sort of making things up. But you're not making it up out of scratch. You're making it up. You couldn't do what you're doing now if it wasn't for all the journey that you went through to get to this point.
Totally.
So now I really want to hear your quote, because I feel like we're just going to...
I can agree more, and you'll be able to talk more about this.
Yeah, go.
So my quote is considerably shorter. It's from a lovely book by a guy named Jed McKenna.
Dude, I bought it. I bought it.
So,
yeah.
It's so good. So it's about a guy.
I haven't read this.
He's a guru, and he's enlightened, and he's trying to help people along the way, but you can't really. He's like, you can only lead them a certain way. It's up to them, and it's very like self.
Hold the book up a little longer so people can see.
It's very self-empowering, sort of in that like
spiritual enlightenment, the damnedest thing.
Right. He's saying, I don't enlighten anybody. I just sort of point the way, which is kind of how we look at our stuff. And the quote is, I mean, there's so many quotes I could just rip out of here, but. The quote that I loved is, it's the student who calls the tune. Whoa, what does that mean? Well, for myself and for coaches, it's the client who calls the tune.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Well, it means that I'm not in the business of making clones of me, as cool as that might be, right? Like, I don't have everybody be like me. I don't put my beliefs into them other than my belief in choosing your own beliefs. Yeah. Because they have to choose their path, and it's my job to help them. And maybe from a different perspective, I can guide them in like the way. Yeah. And the client calls the tunes both consciously and unconsciously. Consciously, they come in and they go, this is my problem, and this is what I want to achieve. Right. I help them. But unconsciously, your client tells you, they call the tune, if you will, by the phrases and the metaphors that they use when they're, and you find out what the problem really is, right? Yeah. So rarely is the tune that they think they're calling really the tune that they need to play with. And
I would say as well, you want to go down the rabbit holes that are presented by their unconscious. Like the unconscious calls the tune in the sense that they're going to give you everything you need.
Right. So that's my next point, is that they will give you the keys. They will tell you what the problem is. They'll also tell you how to fix it if you just let them call the tune. They will tell you what they need. And it's so much of even hypnosis is just, I really liked how you took my words and turned them back around on me. Like, yeah, cool, right? Tell me I'm a good person. Tell me to let go of this stuff. But you have to let them call the tune, because their music is what they will most deeply resonate with.
Yeah. Right. So to emphasize like the opposite point and say like, what do most people do? And this is weird because at some point I said, you're going to need to develop your own style. And what a lot of people do is they will develop a style that's so rigid that they will say everybody comes in and people who mesh with that style will get good results. But if you don't mesh with my style, well, you just didn't want it enough.
Right. So I like to think of it as bespoke therapy is what I do. Right. You let them call the tune, and you tailor the entire thing to them. It's not like, oh, this is hour 2 of our breakthrough. That means we need to talk about your limiting beliefs. Or I'm doing this wrong.
Like what time is it? Like that's the worst thing.
It's week 3 of my 12-week VIP course, and we need to be talking about your dad. Otherwise, I'm doing it wrong. Right? You're trying to fit a mold, or you're either trying to fit them into a mold, but even worse, you're trying to fit yourself into a mold that maybe somebody taught you. Right? Like you're just trying to say, oh, well, this is the way. Somebody taught me the way, and I have to do it the way. And it goes back to what you were saying about you find your own way, right? There is no the way. There's just the way. There's just the Tao.
I guess the NLP principle we're modeling the most here, or emphasizing the most here, is there isn't a right and a wrong way to do it. There are ways that get results, and there are ways that don't.
Right. And it's like, I could go, oh, this is your problem right here. This is your problem. But that's going to go.
Right.
It's up to me to listen to their tune and sort of play along with it until they can kind of play a different tune on their own. Right. It's not enough to just say, here's what your problem is. It's not enough to know what their problems are. They have to figure out the answers themselves. And that's our job, to kind of nudge them into thinking that they discovered the wild surmise that's going to lighten up their world, right? Mm-hmm. And that's, because there's no the way, there's just the way. There's just the Tao and going with it, and it's just a matter of trusting your skills, right?
I guess that another point I would mention is, like you're saying, like they play the tune, or what is it? The student
calls the tune. Right.
Calls the tune. So part of that too is about intention. So when I said there's no right way and wrong way, there's just ways that get results and don't. But what results? Theirs. Right. What do they want? Now I'll asterisk that by saying sometimes people are so in the box that what they think they want is still in the problem. So sometimes you have to guide them to find what they really, really, really want.
Right. Well, they can't.
But ultimately, I
just want to see past my own hands. Right.
Yeah. Ultimately, you can't guide them anywhere they don't want to go. And that's such a cliche, but it's utterly true. And it's a waste of time to try to guide them where you want them to go.
Yeah. And it's like, I look at people as like puzzles, and I'm trying to solve their puzzle. It's no fun solving a puzzle that how it works. You got to get the puzzle. Yeah. It's like teaching the puzzle to solve itself. Is kind of how I look at it.
That's good.
You know what I mean? To
I like that.
Find within themselves the resources that they already have, so they can have what they want. And
that's a beautiful metaphor, because I think of like a mess of you just dumped out a box of puzzle pieces, and then they are the puzzle, and they're trying to and you're like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it for you. Right. I'm going to be like, find the corners, find the corners, find the edge pieces.
Exactly. Yeah. And so you get them to all of that, associate their resources. And that's why the student calls a tune, because I can dance to any song.
It's beautiful. I dig it. Cool. Okay, you want to answer a couple questions?
Sure. Yeah.
Is it? I wonder if there's anybody who's posted any questions.
Who are you guys? What are you doing right now? I thought you were dead.
No, there's no questions, but we do have some viewers. So hello, people who are watching. That's exciting. Okay, so I pulled these off of a Facebook group that I'm a member of that's for NLP coaches and practitioners. And hypnotists, and I just went through and found like questions and that other people had already answered in the group, but I was like, whatever, we can answer them here. And if anybody's listening and they have a similar situation or they find it valuable. So the first one I wrote down was, I was wondering, what your favorite strategy has been for a client dealing with kleptomania? So I've never dealt with kleptomania, I'll be honest. Either. But I felt like we could hypothesize.
Right now, it probably involves self-worth.
All right, you tell me your strategy, and then I'll tell you where I would start.
Them, aren't you worth more than the things you're stealing? Somehow sort of break them out of the belief system that they need that, or like, it all goes back pretty much to, couldn't you find that feeling somewhere else in a better way? And or logical levels of some kind of ribaldry. That's another word, the good one, like, what was it? Wild, I forgot the word already that you said. The wild surmise. Surmise,
yeah.
Ribaldry. It's some good natured.
So expound slightly on logical levels, because like that's a little bit, specific to your school of NLP.
To me, I would go, you're into stealing stuff that's not yours,
right,
and it gets you off. So clearly there's something inside of you that needs to be filled, and or some kind of value of your own that you can't find without taking someone else's stuff. A rush that you can't get, or a self-worth, something around value. Like, what are your values around stealing? You know what I mean? Like, and what level of stuff are you willing to steal? And what if someone stole from you? Would that get you off? Would they so the logical levels, I guess, would be to.
So playing with the boundary conditions of the pattern.
Yeah. And just go, what if, is it this? What if, could you steal a piece of gum? Now it doesn't get me off anymore. Oh, but what could you steal this? Or like, could you steal a life?
Exactly. Good, good.
You know what I mean? Like, and to just sort of blow out the boundaries to get that sort of fuzzy, and really sort of, like I said, point out in a lighthearted way or a seriously, like, I want to say trippy way or quantum linguistical way or mind-bending language kind of way, to get them to go, oh, I guess I do lack some kind of value. There's something about me that's not worth not stealing something.
Right? Yeah.
That would be where I would go first.
Well, this is a cliche. I'm pulling a cheap move right here by saying the truth is
we need it from someone else.
Yeah, right. It should be said that, like, obviously we don't know enough information based on this. So the idea with kleptomania is, what the fuck does that mean? Like, from an NLP perspective, like there's an infinite number of ways that people could manifest that strategy. So obviously the real answer that I have would be, I don't know how I would deal with it. I would need to dig into it and figure out, where did this come from? How do they specifically do it? And when do they do it? And what triggers it? But I also would look at it as, I tend to have a pretty consistent response that almost everything that people think of as a problem is a symptom, not a problem. Kleptomania is a symptom. What's going on under the surface? And you mentioned it gets you high. So as I understand the pattern of kleptomania, it's very similar to a lot of other compulsions where it's not the thing. They don't fucking care. Like, Winona Ryder stole a spatula. Like, she could have probably bought the whole fucking store.
It was a really nice spatula, though.
It was a diamond-encrusted spatula. The idea is, what are they doing? What are they getting out of it? And then why are they needing that? What is blocking them from being able to feel what they are feeling in that moment in other areas of their life? And then you can trace that back to the root cause of trauma, which, I mean, that's the root cause of everything, is some trauma that happened.
And then figure out how to have a good time instead, and then do that. And have more of those.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'd probably end up using techniques like work with the timeline, whether you call it timeline therapy or mental emotional release techniques or whatever. As far as specific things, I love your inclusion of logical levels. So playing with the boundary conditions of what kinds of things do you steal? What if someone stole from you?
Aren't you worth not stealing?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, you want to do another one?
Yeah, of course. I got all day.
Okay,
man.
so this one's set. What time do you got to go?
I got time.
Okay. So this quote was, I had a nurse ask me this. Patients who are stressed / have white coat syndrome end up with inaccurate blood pressure readings. You know what white coat syndrome is?
Yes.
Okay. So the person's afraid of doctors and nurses.
Bad experiences based on anchors.
Right. They've got negative anchors.
Too.
Yeah. So this is a nurse that says, given that I only have 5 minutes with a patient, what hypnotic techniques can I implement to make sure that they're calm so that we can have an accurate reading? And then there's a follow-up question, which is, can they be too calm so that the reading shows a lower blood pressure, which may be inaccurate too?
Well, I would do what you said in the first thing. I would go in there and be honest and go, hey, listen, I just want you to know if you have, like, if she knows they've had bad times, can she tell, or she, I'm assuming if the nurse is a she, can this nurse have,
sexist.
Can this nurse, do they know this person's having a bad time? Or are they just trying to come in and go, hey, I mean, I'll just go, hey, I don't know if you've experienced other doctors, but we're cool here. I just want to make sure you're okay. And that we're here to listen to you and basically fill in all the blanks that would be all the things.
So you're getting in their model of the world. You're validating their past experiences.
All the things that give people white coat syndrome. I would
yes.
go in and intentionally bring that right up and go, these are the things I'm making sure you know that we're not going to give you this. We're going to treat you right. We're going to respect you. And we're going to listen to you. We're going to give you your time. Are you okay? Cool. You want to, like, is that, in some way to make them know that we're not them. We're here for you. And then maybe even bring up something like white coat syndrome. We don't have that. We're the not white coat syndrome office. And maybe even don't wear white coats.
I was just going to say, like, maybe don't wear a white coat.
I would wear like a tie-dye or whatever it has to be. Like, or just something nice.
Yeah.
But just to the point where, like, we aren't that. We're here for you. How can I help?
Yeah.
And at which point you're like,
Well, I love what you said about we are not them. So there's lots of ways you can do this, but you can be like, I hate nurses too. Like you're not necessarily going to say exactly those words, but something about coming alongside the person and being like, all those other people that you've had trouble with, it's them, not we're together. It's you and I together against them. There's a big principle there for coaching in general about building rapport by becoming the team. We're the inside group. They're the outside.
Right. And then there's revivifying something that they love that makes them happy and relaxed. Hey, what do you love to do when's your vacation like? When's the last time you had a really chill time? Oh, cool. I love, tell me more about that. Oh, you were there, you were there and you're just having a great time on the beach and the wind, whatever it was, get them to go back to there. And all of a sudden they're not here anymore.
Right. So directing their internal representation, hypnotic language, I love revivifying. Instead of telling a story you think is going to be universal, ask them about something relaxing, about something.
Because I could be like, my last vacation was fucking amazing. And they're like, I don't remember my last vacation. I haven't
been on vacation in 10 years or
exactly.
whatever.
That's why I'm here.
And then the last thing I would say is pace their breathing. At a very, very simple, basic level, if nothing else, if you ignore all the rest of that stuff, pace their breathing. You can do that in less than 5 minutes. You can do that in 30 seconds or less. Like, all it takes is like 2-3 breaths in and out for you to get them into rapport with you, and then pace them and then get them following you. So pacing and leading.
They come inside the door and be like, oh man, it's been a busy day, but I'm here now for you.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
You've just done all that.
Well, and even if you did something like that after you come in and like let them lead the tune. So come in, get where they're at, match and mirror their physiology, match their breathing, and then you can go, and then they're going to feel that with you.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good one.
All right.
You want one more?
Of course.
All right, let's do one more and we'll be done. 3 questions, that's a lot. Okay. This is how the question was worded. Has anyone ever been successful using hypnosis/NLP to help someone stop unconsciously humming? If so, what methods did you use, and did it take more than one session?
I would say yes, someone must have. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the answer for you, I've never worked with humming specifically, but I've worked with a lot of other unconscious behaviors like nail biting, hair twirling, hair chewing,
energy,
cracking knuckles. Yeah.
So that's that. I mean, I would say if someone has, probably.
So what technique would you use?
I mean, you could do something as simple as a swish. I mean, that's a
swish pattern.
Nail biter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like boop, boop, boop.
Look for the trick. I mean, the beautiful thing about swish is it's going to focus you on finding the trigger.
Right.
So you need to know what is triggering this behavior. When does it happen and when does it not happen?
Right.
And then
what does it
makes me think of,
how can you get that another way?
It makes me think of, I had a job once. I was working at a coffee shop, and the guy who ran it was this Egyptian dude. I don't remember his name, but he apparently had a roommate from Russia. This is a embedded quotes for you. And he wouldn't allow anyone to whistle. Yeah. Because apparently in Russia, according to him anyway, whistling indoors is bad luck. So I became aware of how fucking often I whistle just because I'm filled with joy. Yeah. And I wanted to whistle. And he'd be like, no whistling. We do not whistle here. And I'm like, like it was immediately like this dystopian authoritarian.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of whistlers, but I can appreciate, you know, some if it's off tune or if it's like a song I don't care about or if like.
Yeah, no, his was superstitious.
Yeah. But as far as taking energy and transmuting it, absolutely you can do that through any number of those.
Oh, good point. So the idea is, so if you go back before the trigger for something like humming or whistling or any unconscious behavior like that, you're going to find a feeling.
You know, I used to do that before. Like that was one of the things that I had to get rid of when I was first
nail biting was one of mine
years ago. So I would just be bored, whatever, and it was like a thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, it's gross. Which for me, swisharoony, that was it.
So you said, so before the trigger, this is some advanced swish pattern shit. So for those of you listening, before the trigger, you're going to find almost always some kind of kinesthetic, like a feeling that there's and what you just said is like redirecting or transmuting that energy and moving it into something else.
Right.
And then a lot of times it's an uncomfortable feeling that they're trying to resolve, like a pressure that feels like it's building that they're trying to resolve by, Now, I would add to this, remember that with a lot of behaviors, there are adaptive benefits to it. So humming, what's that?
I'm a fan of humming.
Yeah, humming is good for you because you're vibrating your vagus nerve. So you might tell them to actively hum. So this is a Milton Erickson thing. Yeah. Is whenever you have something that somebody's trying not to do it, exactly, tell them to do it more. So maybe get them starting to do a daily chanting practice.
Right.
Or like
play the saxophone.
Yeah, or the didgeridoo, or something that's going to vibrate and resonate that, and then they'll find, oh, actually, there was a part of me that was humming because this is good for me, because this is something I need.
And I wouldn't necessarily want them to stop humming. I mean, unless they wanted to, if it was killing them, but like maybe hum in appropriate times and enjoy it.
Right. I'm assuming that. I'm assuming that the humming is a problem in some way. They're doing it in inappropriate moments. Yeah. Yeah, I've always wanted to work with stutters. If anybody's listening and you've got a stutter, I really want to work with you. I've never had a chance to work with stuttering, and I've always wanted to. And I know there must have been people.
But you know what helps with stutters is humming. Like,
right. Yeah. There's so many cool things to do.
That like I can hear and feel when I hum helps people to speak clearly when they're stuttering.
Yeah. It's fascinating. Stuttering and Tourette's as well are so fascinating because they're so contextual. Right. Like James Earl Jones, like Darth Vader and fucking Mufasa, has a crazy stutter. Did you know that?
You're going to say he has Tourette's because that was going to be awesome.
No, he's got a crazy stutter. But when he has a script, no stutter at all. One of the things that I've also heard, and I've never fully validated this, but from what I've heard, people who have Tourette's never enact their twitch or their expression while they're having sex, which is an interesting point there.
Yes, and maybe they just don't ever get a chance to have sex, and because they can't get there before they've upset whoever they might be.
Well, I know several people who have Tourette's that are married, so I'm pretty sure that's not true.
Right. Yeah, man. And I was just thinking about, someone who has too much humming and someone who has a stutter, and the stutter person needs to hum. And in my head, I'm like, oh, if only there was a way to get, because we were talking about resource problem. What if you could get other people's resources to solve your problem? But of course, you can. You can modeling, right? And so again, you can take someone else's solution and try it on your problem as well.
Past lives is a really great way to do that, because you can just open the door to an infinite number of creative solutions to your problems as you just go back into a past life where you didn't have this problem, or where you had the problem and you solved it. What did that version of you learn in that other lifetime? So that's another way to just open that door.
Of your favorite people who could teach you that in your mind, all that good stuff.
Cool. All right, man. That was good. We covered a lot of stuff. Let's see if there's any comments or anything we need to respond to. I don't know if I'm even looking in the right place, but that was 45 minutes on the nose, so I think we're good. You want to call it for our first return of Living NLP?
What did we say? Peace, love, and NLP?
Peace, love, and NLP. We're planning on doing this roughly every Friday, so if you ever want to tune in for the live show, it'll probably be sometime Friday afternoons. But we're going to be pretty flexible. So if we've got other stuff coming up, well, then you're going to have to wait till next week, or we'll do it on a different day or whatever.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, man. Glad to be here. Glad to be talking shop.
Yeah, I'm excited to get back into this.
Sharing.
2020 is shaping up to be a kick-ass year.
Learning through teaching, or mastery through teaching, all that good stuff or just sharing and growing. I'm all about it. So let's do this thing.
I love it. I love it. All right, man. We're done.
Peace.
Later.